just preface it by saying that I am in love with Ari Aster as a director. I think he's one of the most interesting and intelligent directors working today. Having seen it once, having thought about it a bit more, having understood the mechanics of Ari Aster's filmmaking, I've definitely given it more thought than perhaps I would of his other movies after just the first viewing, because I know that it requires that kind of deep analysis that on the surface that a lot of people actually
for sure
might overlook massively.
I mean, all his work, has a lot to it.
Yeah.
There are so many themes in there, every single one of his films, but this film, oh, man, I mean, there's even a lot that you probably won't even catch on the second viewing.
Yeah.
That you'll want to discuss.
I actually think that the
trajectory.
I find it so hard saying that word.
Trajectory.
Trajectory
There you go, guys. Trajectory.
of his movies are at the minute constantly almost outdoing themselves, just in the sense of depth and just the level of discussion you can have about it underneath. Because you start off at Hereditary, obviously that was a lot more, basic horror surface level. Although
it's very much his first film.
Exactly. And that's what it served to be, and it did it really well. Then Midsommar took it up a notch and was a little bit more subtle and showed his flair a little bit more.
And then Beau Is Afraid was
blew it up, just absolutely exploded.
Which I still haven't rewatched. I think that hopefully at some point I'll come around to it in the way you have. I'm still a bit on the fence with Beau Is Afraid.
Absolutely brilliant.
Man,
film,
there was a lot to chew on there. And
Yeah.
Eddington, he's just taken it to a whole new level.
Yeah, he is. Well, I found actually quite a lot of the movie to be not necessarily, it's so strange. It's like not even necessarily entertaining on that typical level that you'd watch a movie. There were some things that were difficult to watch in terms of just maybe two characters that are having a very difficult conversation and they're not quite understanding each other and they're back and forth, and just the constant disruption that happens in the movie, just constantly rioting and shouting at each other, and just the closeness of which it showed just the way people communicate on social media and how toxic that can be, and sharing information and just the miscommunication and misinformation shared between people about certain things. And Joaquin Phoenix's character is very interesting. Like he's not really a very likable guy at all.
I mean, none of them really are.
No, not really,
None of them are likable whatsoever.
And
it's because the interesting thing is he's kind of meant to be positioned, at first as the moralistic person.
Yeah. But
you realise, man, he's just as corrupt as the rest of them.
He's just lying, cheating, and stealing. Yeah.
Yeah. And which we do have to preface this by saying that, if you haven't seen the film, it's set during the pandemic, and I thought that was such a smart choice by him. Watching it, I think that's why it felt so uncomfortable. It took me back to that time.
Yeah,
he captured it so perfectly.
That's it.
Just all the emotions that we were feeling, and are probably still feeling now, because it's really fascinating to watch this film. Being set in a time period that we're still in. A lot of us are still recovering, emotionally, psychologically from COVID and that whole period of time. Yeah. And it's really interesting to see it examined. I guess with quite a bit of distance, it's been 5 years. But I thought he captured that perfectly. The paranoia, just the way everyone talked to each other, and just and the way he used social media to exemplify that. I thought it was a brilliant choice by him.
And what I love about him is that that's the last thing that people want to see. The last thing that people want when they go to the cinema is to be taken back to that awful time.
To be reminded of that.
And it's like, no, let's look at it. Let's examine it.
On paper, it sounds terrible, but then in the hands of a genius like Ari Aster, it's it's so perfect.
Well, this is why I see him as on the very top shelf of directors, because of that very reason. I don't think... and we all know this, really. Filmmakers, some filmmakers just want to entertain you. Some filmmakers want to make you think. And I think Ari Aster does both.
Yes.
And
yes, absolutely.
I think... I don't even think he particularly cares whether he's entertaining you or not. No. And I know that sounds funny.
Like the best directors working today... Yeah. He still obviously wants to entertain the audience, but he's making what he wants to make.
Yeah, and he doesn't care if you're uncomfortable. He doesn't care if he puts you in a really awkward place or he pisses you off.
Because, this film has pissed off quite a few people.
Yeah.
Especially it can. When it comes to, it's politics, of course.
Yeah.
it's divisive, but I guess it was bound to be when you're tackling a subject matter like that, and the topic of misinformation.
Yeah.
Of course, you're going to get different viewpoints on it.
Yeah.
But another thing that I found really interesting about this is that actually, and I don't even say this as like an insult. It's weird. For any other film, this would be a negative. It's by design. I think it is the least visually appealing of his films.
I agree.
But I think that was so
Purposeful.
his idea. That was so purposeful because like Beau Is Afraid is more fantastical. Same with Midsommar. I mean, Midsommar is gorgeous.
Yeah.
And this still was very nice to look at, but very dull colors.
Yeah.
Some very nice shots, but more in terms of the camera movement rather than like the color grading or how just like what's in the frame.
Well, a lot of shots are just filming mobile phones.
Yeah.
Or people live streaming or something
like that. It was
like
completely by design. I actually think that adds to
Yeah.
just the kind of like the misery of it.
Yeah, no, you're right. I agree. I totally agree. The discomfort of it. It's a very uncomfortable movie.
Yeah. And very funny film.
It's quite funny, yeah.
Yeah, it was.
And
I thought it was hilarious.
I mean, having said that, there are some fucking insanely intense moments. Like the shootout scene is brilliant.
Oh, man.
I love that.
But then certain moments caught me off guard with how funny they were, and I think that's just in the dialogue.
Yeah.
Like, I can't remember the exact details at the moment, but like his reaction to the mayor's campaign video where they're singing along, they're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Just little things like that.
So what I noticed about this movie, and I'm definitely going to pick up on it like more the second time I watch it. But obviously, most of it is to do with the back and forth between, I think it's Ted Garcia,
Pedro Pascal.
Pedro Pascal's character, which is Ted Garcia, and Joe Cross, which is Joaquin Phoenix. Their dynamics between each other. And what you find is it's not only them, it's most people, and this is probably why it is very funny, is even the character's dialogue replicates the miscommunication that happens online between people when you're talking at cross purposes. And so
I
you'll
didn't
say
think of
something
it like that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, you might notice it second time that they will say something, and then, for example, Joe Cross's character will listen to it and he will interpret it in the wrong way, and then they'll argue back and forth, and they're talking at complete cross purposes. And I think what he's doing there is he's actually replicating how social media, and especially it was such an explosive moment because everyone was just living online.
You couldn't get away from it.
Yeah, during the COVID pandemic.
Yeah.
It was like everyone came together, and yet everyone was so far apart from each other. And I think what this film, primarily, the purpose of it is to show that no matter how close we think we are all now connected online, speaking to each other every day, we can talk to each other from across the world, closer than we have ever have been, and been closer ever since the COVID pandemic.
Like there's this invisible wall
exactly.
there that we can't quite shake off. And that is actually, I think, a part of like the key theme of this film, which is polarization.
Yeah.
Which is, was obviously prevalent during the pandemic, but just even more prevalent in today's world.
You see it now. You see it now, even on anything like a news article online.
Exactly.
You look at the comments on Instagram.
Yeah.
Someone will be saying something outlandish, and the other person will be disagreeing, and they'll both be talking at complete cross purposes.
They'll be like quite rational. Then you'll see.
And then someone will go,
they can't understand.
Someone will focus on that comment, and then they'll disagree with it.
Yeah.
And there's just this whole spread of just complete miscommunication that does happen online. It's just a consequence of the fact that human beings don't.
Yeah.
The best way to actually communicate with each other, no matter how close we are now, all online, is face to face, and we will never be able to beat that. And I think the major theme as well, which is literally a symbol at the very beginning of the movie, which is actually shown at the end, is the data center, which is called Solid Gold Magikarp.
Actually, I was going to come to you on that.
Yeah.
The parts at the ending were a little lost on me, I will admit. Like the first time, I didn't entirely get every single detail.
Yeah.
So I know it's not I didn't like the ending, but I was still wondering, like, I don't entirely get it.
Yeah, that's
I'll probably go back to it now we've had this conversation. But
So
parts of the ending did very much
I'm not going to
confuse me.
pretend to completely understand the meaning of Solid Gold Magikarp, but anyone, you should look that up, and you should draw your own interpretations from that, because that is the key to understanding a lot of what may be a little bit hazy in the rest of the movie, because that's basically the symbol of the data center, which represents so much of the miscommunication that happens between the characters throughout the movie.
And did you have any standout moments in the film? Because I have one scene in particular.
The scene in the house with Ted Garcia, with the gun and what happens with Ted
Yeah.
Garcia. I love that moment. It really
standout
caught me off
scene.
guard. What about you?
For me, it was the protest scene.
Yeah.
I fucking love that scene so much. The camera work,
Yeah,
and just
yeah.
because it just hits so close to home with how the world is. Like, that's what great art does. It reflects the world that we're in.
Yeah.
And that scene, I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. I was just in awe of, like, I mean, the dialogue. Think about how hard that was to probably write. With, like, whenever there's overlapping dialogue and all these people, just the way he moves the camera in that scene, I thought it was like
So immersive.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was excellent. And I will never look at Katy Perry's firework in the same way ever again, will you?
I love how he always puts in like the most random pop culture kind of music.
Yeah.
It's so funny. He did that with Beau Is Afraid as well. And I think he spends like a ridiculous amount of money because he's so obsessed with just getting in the funniest,
the most random thing.
And I think there's genuinely
Ari Aster's hilarious. He's funny. He's a funny guy.
He's so
in a very twisted way, but
he's on the same shade. He's on the very similar dimension to Yorgos Lanthimos in the sense that there is so much humor to be drawn out of just funny human interactions that on the surface maybe people might not even notice. And I think that, and I know this is quite a bold statement to say, but I think that it could very well be the case that Ari Aster could end up being the new Stanley Kubrick.
I see it.
I actually think
I do see it. I would say arguably more than Yorgos.
Yes.
Because like we said in our last podcast, there is a danger that some people could get sick of Yorgos. I don't think you'll ever get sick of Ari Aster because he's always like refining his style and changing him. I mean, it's still him all the way through, but he's always trying different things.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you had told me, like, the guy did Hereditary would direct a film about the pandemic, I would have never thought. Like, it's the last thing I expected from him.
Yeah.
And it's just, it worked out so brilliantly.
If you look at him and Yorgos, maybe you could say that Yorgos is more like Stanley, but I've definitely come to the conclusion that it's the other way around. For the very reason that you just said, that he's got more variety in the genres. And also the fact, like the subject matter, I know he's done a lot of horrors, but there's always a lot of variation between them. And not to say that there isn't for Yorgos, but I just feel like there's so much more depth in Ari Aster's movies, and he's making some really, really solid, hard truth points about fucking life.
About the world.
In his movies. They're actually quite terrifying. And that's what Stanley Kubrick did.
Yeah.
And on the surface, it could be so overlooked. And it blows me away how much he's packed into this movie. And I'm not surprised that people were pissed off at it. Good. I mean, it's supposed to be that kind of polarizing movie that gets people thinking, that gets people talking, that gets people having a fucking conversation.
I think in the best possible way, I am amazed that after Beau Is Afraid, given how divisive that was, both critically and like commercially, it didn't do well, lost money. I am so happy that he was allowed to make this. Something so fucking bold and polarizing. Like, are you kidding me?
Absolutely.
Like, most directors, after Beau Is Afraid, wouldn't even be let like near such a big budget, because like this is one of A24's, I'd say, like bigger films in terms of the scale. I think mainly because of the ending, it's still quite intimate, but man, I'm just so shocked in the best way that they allowed him to do this, because like this film on paper, it's so divisive, man. Do you know what I mean? Like, are you shocked he was like allowed to make this after Beau Is Afraid?
I'm not, because it's A24, and I'm just so grateful for the fact that studios like A24 exist, and they actually hold out good faith for these directors, and they don't say, oh, just because it's not making as much money, we're going to stop doing that. No,
that is fantastic.
That should be completely against the ethos of what fucking A24 is all about, and I'm so glad they didn't. They haven't gone in that direction in that sense. I know they are opening themselves up to more commercial
like
stuff.
Civil War, Smashing Machines, stuff like that.
And
but,
that's great.
I feel like they're balancing it quite well.
That's only due to their success.
Yeah, because the interesting thing about this film is I feel like you can market it as commercial, which is probably why they put so much money into it. Like, on the surface, you'll watch the trailer and think, oh, this is just like, a comedy. This is an action film.
Yeah.
This is like a weird little satire. But this film is anything but commercial.
Yes,
in the best way. Anything but.
Absolutely.
Like, I can imagine a lot of general audiences will go and see this and think, what the fuck did I just watch? What's the point of that?
Absolutely.
It is not really like that accessible.
No,
at all
not at all. Not
to
at
the
all.
general audience. Whereas like
films
his first
like
two
that
films
need to
were.
exist. Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
But I love how he's just refining himself, and he's doing what the hell he wants.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think his whole philosophy is, look, if you're not meant to enjoy it and you're not meant to be entertained, I actually like you say, obviously he's trying to entertain the people who want to be entertained. But if you don't want to be entertained in that way, to get you thinking and to get you kind of contending with really, really difficult issues and maybe discussing it afterwards, then you can go away, because that's not the kind of film. We've got enough accessible commercial films out there. I'm not going to be that kind of director, and I just love how he does what he wants. I love it. I love it.
Oh,
I'm
same,
so
man.
down.
Yeah.
I'm so down for whatever he does.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and yeah, I'm glad.
I'm
that,
glad it exists.
It exists. I'm glad he exists.
Yeah.
So yeah.